Sample problem 8.02. A 2 kilogram sloth hangs 5 meters above the ground as shown in the figure. So you have to see the figure. A sloth is exactly hanging on the branch of the tree, which is exactly 5 meters above the ground. Now, what is the gravitational potential energy of the sloth Earth system if we take the reference point y equal to 0 to be at the ground? So now you can see how to answer this question, and in this figure they mentioned 4 vertical lines. So each vertical line is for each question. For example, let's take the first question. What we are going to find? We are going to find what is the gravitational potential energy of the sloth Earth system if we take the reference point y equal to 0 to be at the ground. So let's take the first line. So what is your reference point here? With respect to this reference, we have to consider the ground is our reference. That's the reason for this ground surface they mention 0. So likewise, when you are going to answer for the second question and the third question and the fourth question, we have to consider these lines. So that means the first line is for the first, second line is for the second question, and the third line is for the third question, and the fourth line is for the fourth question. Likewise, you have to answer. So now what we are going to find? We are simply finding the answer for the gravitational potential energy. As we know, the formula for gravitational potential energy, which is mgh. We know the formula for the gravitational potential energy. So potential energy, either you can represent with the letter U or we can use the letter PE. So either you can use U or PE for finding the answer for the gravitational potential energy. What is the formula? mgh. This is the formula. Now I am going to use this formula for each question by taking the reference line. So for the first question, we have to consider what should be the gravitational potential energy for the sloth Earth system, and your reference should be at ground. So our reference here is 0. From 0, which point your sloth is exactly hanging on the branch, which is exactly at the point of 5. So you can see the reference point with respect to the ground is 0 and the sloth is exactly at 5 meters. So what we have to do, we have to find the answer for the first part by substituting the value. The mass of the sloth is 2 kilogram multiplied by 9.8, and from this reference point to this position of the sloth, which is 5 meters, so the height from the reference point is 5 meters. So here we got the answer as 98 joules. So this is the answer for the first question. Likewise, when you come for the second question, you have to consider the second line. So what is given here? What is the gravitational potential energy U of the sloth Earth system if we take the reference point y equal to 0 to be at a balcony floor? You can see the balcony is here, and we have to consider the second line. So here, with respect to the balcony, we have to consider our balcony as our reference point. From this reference point, which location the sloth was there? The sloth is exactly at 2 meters. So that means the height with reference to the reference point is 2 meters. So we have to use the same formula U, which is equal to mgh. So now I'm going to substitute the value. The sloth mass is 2 kilogram. Multiply the gravity, acceleration due to gravity is 9.8, and the height with reference to this reference point of the balcony, so which is 0, so exactly 2 meters. So we have to consider the height here is 2 meters, and then we got the answer. I have to multiply. When you multiply these, I got the answer here as 36 joules or 39.2. What answer I got? 39.2 joules. And then C part. How to answer for the C part? Let's go back to the question. What is the gravitational potential energy U of the sloth Earth system if we take the reference point y equal to 0 to be at the limb? You can see the third line, its position, its position exactly. The reference is also 0. The location of the sloth is also exactly the same point. So at the same level, we already know the potential energy, which is equal to 0, because there is no height, because the position of reference as well as the position of the sloth is on the same point. So what should be the answer for the third? The answer for the third one is U equal to mgh. Here there is no height. Why? Because the sloth as well as the reference point are in the same position. So we will get the answer. Anything multiplied by 0 is 0. So the answer for the third part is 0. Likewise, when you come to the 4, what they mention, we have to find the gravitational potential energy of the sloth Earth system if we take the reference point y equal to 0 to be 1 meter above the limb. So that you can see the sloth is here, and you can see the reference point here is 0. So that means it is exactly 1 meter above from the reference. So that means below to 0, what is this number? Below to 0, we have a -1. So that means the height from the reference point to the sloth is exactly -1 meter. So we have to consider the height is -1. So what we have to do, again, we have to use the same formula, u, which is equal to mgh. So mass is 2 kilogram, acceleration due to gravity is 9.8, and for the height, which is -1. Why we took -1? You can just go back to the figure. You can see the figure. I will magnify. The sloth is here, but your reference, because we have to consider the fourth line for the fourth question, right? So the sloth is here and our reference point is here. So below to the reference, because 0, above 0 we have the positive value, below 0 we have negative value. So below to the 0 we have -1. So this is the height with reference to the reference point 0, so which is -1. That's the reason we just use -1 value for this. Clear? So now when you multiply, I got the answer here as minus 19.6 joules. So this is the answer for the fourth question. And we have one more question also, which is our B part. Let's go back to the question. In this B part, what we are going to find, the sloth drops to the ground. So now you can see initially the sloth is on the branch of the tree, right? Now what happened? The sloth now drops to the ground. So what is our ground value? Our ground value here, we have to consider the 0 of the, am I right? So now you can see the sloth is exactly, the initial point of the sloth is 5 meters, because they clearly mentioned, you have to read the question very carefully. We have to consider the ground surface. So you have to consider the first line. Why? Because here the ground, and this is for the balcony, and this is for the limb position, and this is for the above the limb. So we have to consider the first line. So when you read this question, the sloth now drops to the ground. For each choice of reference point, what is the change in potential energy of the sloth system due to the fall? So now what we have to do, I will just magnify this figure one more time. You can see the sloth is initially at 5. That means the initial position, I have to consider the first line. The initial position is 5, which is I initial, and the final position is the ground position, which is 0. So we have to find the change in potential energy. So what is the formula for change in potential energy? The formula for change in potential energy, which is given by the rule mgh final minus mgh initial. So what is our height final? So you have to go back to the figure. Our h final is a 0 height. Our h initial is a 5 meter. So we have to substitute the value here, or we can take mg as a common. So mg as a common term. So inside the bracket, I can write h up minus h initial. So the mass of the sloth is 2, and the acceleration due to gravity is 9.8 multiplied by h initial is 0, and h final is 0, h initial is 5. So now you can see we will get the negative value for the change in potential energy. So delta U, which is equal to minus 98 joules. So this is the answer for the part B. That's it. Thank you.